If you're watching India this month, you're really seeing two completely different stories play out at the same time. It's a real study in contrasts. So, in this explainer, we're going to try to piece together this puzzle of a nation that's moving at a breakneck pace, looking at both its incredible ambitions and the very real challenges it's facing.
Right. We all hear the headlines. India, the rising global power. But what's the full story behind that? Because like any great story, it's complicated. It's full of twists and turns. So our goal today is to get past those big, flashy headlines and really dig into what's actually happening on the ground. All right, so we've broken this down into 4 key pieces. First, we'll look at the economy, which is humming. Then we'll get into the tough stuff, the serious challenges people are facing. After that, we'll dive into the political scene, which is always buzzing. And finally, we'll zoom out to see how India is playing its cards on the world stage. Ready? Let's kick things off with the economy.
So first up, the economy. And honestly, if you were to just look at the financial news coming out of India this September, you'd think things are absolutely booming. It's a story of growth, confidence, and some real positive momentum.
Okay, so what does BB Plus even mean? Well, this right here is a really big deal. Think of it like a report card for a country's entire economy. And Japan's rating and investment agency just gave India a pretty significant upgrade. This is a huge signal to investors all over the world. It's basically saying, hey, India is a solid, stable bet right now.
And this upgrade didn't just come out of nowhere, right? It's pinned on 2 really solid things. First, people inside India are buying stuff. That's what we call strong domestic demand. And second, the government's being pretty careful with its finances. You put those 2 together and you've got what looks like a recipe for real, long-term growth.
And you can see the government trying to keep that fire going. Take the recent cuts to the GST, that's the goods and services tax. The idea here is simple. Just like Maharashtra's deputy CM said, make things a little cheaper for regular people and for businesses. And what does that do? It fuels that exact same domestic demand we were just talking about. See how it all connects?
Okay, so everything sounds great, right? A glowing economic report card, smart policies. But, and this is a big but, that is not the whole picture. Not even close. Because while all this is happening in the financial world, a completely different and frankly devastating story is unfolding for millions of people on the ground.
And that brings us to the second major theme this month, a massive environmental emergency. We have to step away from the spreadsheets and stock markets for a minute because nature is hitting parts of the country incredibly hard right now.
We are talking about severe, widespread flooding on a scale that's just heartbreaking. I mean, it's hitting seemingly everywhere, from Manipur in the east all the way to Punjab in the north and Maharashtra out west. And the impact is just catastrophic. We're talking thousands of families forced from their homes, entire villages literally swallowed by water, and huge areas of farmland, people's livelihoods just gone, washed away. It's a brutal reality that sits in such a stark, painful contrast to all that economic good news. All right, so from the challenges of nature, let's pivot to the human element, the political arena, because this is where you can really feel the pulse of India's democracy. And trust me, that pulse is strong, it's loud, and it's full of passionate debate.
So one of the big political events this month, of course, was the vice presidential election. And the outcome was pretty clear. C.P. Radhakrishnan, the candidate for the ruling NDA coalition, won with a solid majority. Just over 60% of the electoral votes against the opposition's candidate, B. Sudarshan Reddy.
But politics isn't just about elections. It's about the laws they get passed, and one piece of legislation is stirring up a lot of conversation right now. It's called the Waqf Amendment Act. So what is it? Put simply, it's a new law that changes the rules for how a specific type of property is managed. These are properties that have been set aside for religious or charitable use under Islamic law. And this law has really split opinions. On one side, you have the government, which says, look, this is all about making things more transparent and efficient. But on the other side, you have critics who are deeply concerned. They're arguing that the act is discriminatory and that it takes control away from the community. And this isn't just a quiet disagreement. It's led to some significant protests across several states.
Okay, so let's zoom out. We've talked economy, environment, politics, all this internal stuff. Now, how does all of that affect how India deals with the rest of the world? Well, it sets the stage for what can only be described as a really intricate global balancing act.
And this chart, this just says it all. I mean, look at what's on the diplomatic plate for just 1 month. Over here, they're in the final stages of a huge trade deal with the US. At the same time, they're trying to hit the reset button with Canada.
Then they're doubling down on their partnership with Saudi Arabia, partly in response to a new Saudi-Pakistan deal. And, oh, by the way, they're also strengthening trade and tech ties with Russia. It's like juggling 4 different balls at once. This is what multi-alignment looks like in the real world. So, the big takeaway here is this. India is not sitting back and waiting for things to happen. It's playing offense. It's actively shaping its own role on the world stage by engaging with everyone, from the West to the Middle East to Russia, all at the same time.
So there you have it, 4 big stories that together tell the larger story of India right now. You've got these really strong economic signals. At the very same time, you have this devastating environmental crisis. In the middle of it all, these intense political debates are raging, and on the outside, a super strategic game of global chess is being played. And all of this leaves us with one massive question, doesn't it? On one hand, you have this incredible engine of growth and potential. On the other, you have these incredibly serious, deep-seated challenges. So which one is going to win out? Which force will ultimately define India's future? That is the story we all need to keep watching.